Thank you very much. Let me begin by reminding members of the social distancing measures in place in the Chamber and across the campus, and encourage members particularly to observe these measures while entering and exiting the Chamber and accessing and leaving your seats. The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 244423 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on committee meeting times. Any member who wishes to speak against the motion should press the request to speak button now. And I call on Miles Briggs to move the motion.
Move, Deputy Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much. No member has asked to speak against the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 24423 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. We are agreed. Thank you very much. The motion is therefore agreed. We move on to the next item of business. The next item of business is portfolio questions. The portfolio is Economy, Fair Work and Culture. Can I ask members for succinct questions and answers in order to get as many people in as possible? And I move to our first question, which is Gil Patterson.
Many thanks, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether the Clyde Mission Division has received any response from out with the country to the call by the Economy Secretary for ideas to make the river an engine of sustainable and inclusive growth for Glasgow, the regions and Scotland.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
Thank you for raising awareness of the Clyde Mission Call for Ideas. The call was launched on Monday the 2nd of March. It will remain open until the 29th of March. The Clyde Mission aims to use the river and immediate surrounding land as a national strategic asset. It's focused on developing new green jobs, making use of vacant and derelict land, adapting to climate change, accelerating our progress to net zero, and using the river to create better places for people and communities. The call for ideas was launched on the 1st of March. It's seeking views from those who live, work and do business around the Clyde on what Clyde Mission means to them, what success would look like. We've not yet received any responses from Out With Scotland, but we'd welcome them, and I would encourage colleagues whose constituencies are adjacent to the river to promote engagement with the call for ideas within your area.
Gil Patterson.
Thanks very much, Cabinet Secretary, and say I very much welcome this initiative. I think it's well overdue, and I'm grateful for it taking place now, so it's a good thing. And I'm wondering what are the government doing to ensure public spend on the upcoming Loch Class ferry replacement is used to attract inward investment and bring knowledge and skills into Scotland? Cabinet Secretary.
So clearly we're all focusing on net zero emissions by 2045. There are opportunities for Scotland's supply chain to embrace that by improving and maintaining lifeline ferry services. The small vessel replacement programme will strengthen the viability of some of our remotest communities. It's part of that green recovery that we're talking about. And the vessels themselves will be capable of construction by Scottish shipyards, and the opportunity to support significant upskilling requirements in construction. And I welcome your interest in this particular aspect of transport, but I would point out that although it would include some of the Clyde routes, it falls outside my ministerial responsibility for the Clyde Mission. But I'm sure the Minister, Paul Wheelhouse, whose portfolio for energy, connectivity in the islands and has responsibility for ferries, would be happy to provide any further information. And can I just finally say, Presiding Officer, Gil Patterson has been a stalwart of my party, but he's also been a founding member of this Scottish Parliament and has helped steward it and devolution for the benefit not of only of his constituents, but everybody in Scotland. And I'm sure everyone will join me in wishing him well and also congratulating him for an excellent speech on the Clydebank Blitz last night.
Thank you very much. I have a supplementary question from Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I welcome the update on the Clyde Mission and extend my best wishes to Gil Patterson. Also, the Cabinet Secretary is aware that the Fair Work Convention has raised some concerns that Scotland's is not on track to become a Fair Work nation by 2025 unless bold action is taken. I wonder if the Cabinet Secretary could say what are her aspirations for Clyde Mission in terms of the contribution it could make Scotland becoming a Fair Work nation.
Cabinet Secretary.
So I met with the Fair Work Convention recently, and I shared their concerns about the momentum that will be required to make sure we do what we all want to do, which is become a fair nation, a Fair Work nation by 2025. So their advice, their input is very much welcome. As far as the Clyde Mission is concerned, obviously it's public money going into to help support ideas, but a lot of it is about helping new, good and green jobs, and with a workforce with the skills to secure those jobs. So conditionality and some of the issues that I think we're all are very conscious of will be part and parcel of ongoing support and grants, including for the Clyde Mission.
Question number 2, Rhoda Grant.
To ask the Scottish Government what it is doing to protect jobs in the Highlands and Islands.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
Thank you. Since the start of the pandemic, we've provided over £330 million to support businesses and to protect jobs across the Highlands and Islands. This is alongside the £58.1 million budget we provided to support the work of Highlands and Islands Enterprise across the region. During this financial year, Highlands and Islands Enterprise has supported over 1,900 jobs, of which 1,125 were safeguarded, and we're also investing £242.5 million in regional growth deals across the Highlands and Islands as part of a package of measures to ensure long-term growth and job creation.
Rhoda Grant.
The Parliament is going into recess ahead of the election next week. During this period, the Scottish Government cannot make any funding announcements. Yet in the Highlands and Islands, and indeed in the rest of Scotland, companies are going to the wall due to a lack of COVID business support. Sadly, many of these companies are in constituencies represented by Cabinet Secretaries who have powers and levers to help, but refuse to use them. Will the Scottish Government therefore give power and funds to local government who stand ready to assist these companies during this period? Companies for whom £2,000 discretionary support is an insult rather than assistance.
Fiona Hislop.
Well, I don't accept the premise of the member's question. There's been over £500 million distributed to businesses across Scotland since November, over £3 billion over the last year, and the budget set forward, and unfortunately those that didn't support the budget would not have been supporting funding for businesses. That business support is there as part of the budget provision. The announcement only this week by the First Minister will see payments paid for business support in March, but also a top-up grant, a restart grant. I'm not sure whether Rhoda Grant was aware of this, but there'll be additional support there to help restart for businesses during the period of April and May. So there's extensive support. On terms of the discretionary fund, it's been increased from 30 million to 120 million pounds, and local authorities have the discretion how to spend that. I agree with her. I don't think £2,000 is adequate. It might be for micro companies, but there are many companies that would benefit from that discretionary fund, and I would encourage councils during the period of April to use it.
A number of supplementary questions. Brief questions and answers, please, so that I can get everybody in. John Mason.
Thank you. One of the ways of protecting jobs in the Highlands and Islands and elsewhere has been the furlough scheme. But as I understand it, those that started a job after October do not qualify for the furlough scheme until May. Can the Cabinet Secretary call on the UK Government to do something about this?
Cabinet Secretary.
So for different reasons, there's seasonality, not least in the Highlands and Islands, for example, snow sports, etc., where people will have started and expect to start later than the summer. So failure to open the furlough scheme to people who started new jobs since October leaves a significant and growing number of workers without any support. We have called on the Chancellor to revise the cut-off date for entry to the scheme to provide support to people who have started new jobs since the end of October 2020, and you will not be able to access their support until the 1st of May 2021. So he's correct in saying that's a way of supporting people, particularly those in new jobs. And we also know, because of the nature of the economy, the Highlands and Islands have a distinct number of people on furlough because of the nature of its economy.
Maurice Golden.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Hospitality is one of the hardest hit sectors of our economy. Against the backdrop of average debts of £80,000 per site, and with much of the sector reliant on evening trade, will the Scottish Government review the restrictions on indoor sale of alcohol and opening times in order to provide a lifeline for the sector and protect jobs?
Cabinet Secretary.
So that's exactly what we did, and in discussion with the hospitality industry, and I commend the work particularly of the Scottish Tourism Alliance in this. Two things have been very important to make sure that companies are sustainable. One is to make sure that customers can reach them from right across Scotland. So that major change to allow all of us to cross Scotland from the 26th of April is really important. But so important is the viability in terms of opening hours. And that's exactly why we listened to the hospitality industry, and they have welcomed what we've done in terms of those changes that we've made. Do some people in the hospitality industry, including pubs, want to be able to serve alcohol much, much earlier? Yes, but they have said that right throughout this year. We've got to balance health as well as the economy. And I think the hope and confidence we've managed to deliver with the announcement, which has by and large been welcomed by business, shows you there's a route map through this difficulty, and that for our hospitality sector in particular, initially in the 26th of April, but then from the 17th of May and onwards, is really important to get the closed economy back open.
And Liam MacArthur.
Thanks very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. An island impact assessment into HIAL's plans to centralise air traffic services, backed by the Scottish Government, has identified a number of significant economic impacts and no positive impacts at all. In my own Orkney constituency, it's estimated 16 full-time equivalent jobs would go, and the loss of £650,000 in gross salaries. How does the Cabinet Secretary believe that that is consistent with Scottish Government principles to support jobs in our islands?
Cabinet Secretary.
So clearly my colleague, the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, whose responsibility this is, has to balance the modernisation of the system and working with air traffic controllers to do that with what the member points out in terms of the local impact on airports on particular economies. So I will draw your concern, or the concerns of the member, to Michael Matheson, and to make sure that he's alert to that. I'm sure he is. Obviously, island impacts are part and parcel of the Scottish Government's approach, but there has to be checks and balances within that, and the associated economic benefits of improving provision of any airport is going to be essential. And clearly, with the COVID implications of this, that adds another dimension to some of the impacts that he's talking about.
Question number 3, Mary Fee.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is supporting adults with additional support needs in the West Scotland region into employment.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
The Scottish Government is working to ensure that everyone has access to fair and sustainable work with opportunities for progression. Fair Start Scotland, our devolved employment service, supports people of all ages who face the greatest challenges in obtaining work, offering personalised one-to-one support tailored to individual circumstances. For participants with additional support needs, Fair Start Scotland offers specialist support, including individual placement and supported employment where appropriate. In addition, our No One Left Behind model, placing people at the centre of its design and delivery, provides employability support to individuals of all ages, including adults with additional support needs, supporting their journey towards and onto work. We continue to work with our partners, including the third sector, to understand the impact of COVID-19 on those with additional support needs and identify what actions would help mitigate any negative impacts for those seeking to enter or sustain employment.
Mary Fee.
Can I thank the Minister for that answer? Despite the Government continuing to promise to reduce the gap by at least half, the employment rate for disabled people still sits as low as 47.8%, compared to 81.3% for those not disabled. And the SNP's A Fairer Scotland for Disabled People Employment Action Plan set out an interim target to reach a 60% disability employment rate by 2030. And to reach these milestones and ultimately halve the gap, the employment rate of disabled people will need to increase by at least 1 percentage point every year. And whilst the government are on target at the moment, having reached 45.6% in 2018, it is a concern that the target will be missed if the pandemic has disproportionately affected disabled workers. So what further specific steps will the government take to ensure that disabled people are supported during Scotland's economic recovery?
Minister.
Presiding Officer, if you'll indulge me, and this will be the last exchange I have with Mary Fee, so can I just quickly pay tribute to all of the efforts she's undertaken over to her time in Parliament, particularly in this type of line of questioning. She always brings these matters forward on a non-partisan basis, and constructively I wish her well for the future. She picks up an area of specific concern to me. Frankly, Presiding Officer, she does make the point that we've made progress, and at present, in the current trajectory, we would meet our target. But I share her concern that COVID-19 has the potential to put things into reverse. That's why the work we're undertaking through No One Left Behind, the extension of Fair Start Scotland, and the work we're doing through the Access to Work Stakeholder Forum that we have established, despite Access to Work being a reserved responsibility. All this type of activity is important and is very much designed towards the end that Mary Fee and I share, that we at least half the disability employment gap and we ensure fairness in our labour market.
Thank you very much. Question number 4 is withdrawn. Question number 5, John Mason.
To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that Agreco is to become another large-scale Scotland-based listed company to lose its independence through a takeover.
Minister Jamie Hepburn.
As a company seeking to be at the forefront of the green technology challenge, Agreco exemplifies our ambitions for a low-carbon economy and increasing Scottish innovation. The company itself is very positive about the role of TDR Capital and I Squared in developing the business further and building on its significant international success. That is to be welcomed, but the Scottish Government will of course continue to engage with the company and new investment partners to establish what more we can do to secure and grow the company's operations in Scotland.
John Mason.
I thank the Minister for that answer. I just wonder if he shares my frustration that when companies are taken over in Scotland, we lose the top jobs, we lose the headquarters, we lose the decision-making, ancillary jobs like legal, accountancy, hospitality, all these kind of things go as well. And can the government do anything to oppose these takeovers?
Minister.
Well, I'm sure Mr Mason will understand in the context of his, the last part of his question, in relation to powers we have, no. The other perspective I would articulate is that inward investment, of course, does have an important role to play in our economy. But in terms of the broad sweep of his question, yes, much of that would concern me, and we would clearly seek to act where necessary. But I do think it is really important in the context of this being a specific question about a specific company, because people from Dumbarton and the Vale of Leven may be listening, and I, as the son of the Rock, know that area well. Presiding Officer, there is no indication that that will happen in this case, and we will, as I say, continue to engage with Agreco to make sure that we support that company, not just for the benefit of the company itself, but for the benefit of Scotland and specifically the communities of Dumbarton and the Vale of Leven.
Question number 6, Sarah Boyack.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it will utilise its public sector procurement to ensure that companies in receipt of public sector contracts pay staff the real living wage and provide longer-term employment and training opportunities.
Minister Ivan McKee.
The Procurement Reform Act Scotland 2014 already requires public bodies to consider and act on opportunities to improve economic, social and environmental well-being through their procurement. This includes addressing fair work and applying community benefit requirements, which are a key mechanism that have been used for many years to secure targeted training and recruitment opportunities. The Scottish Government is also using other mechanisms to encourage more companies to adopt fair work practices. The Greenport model is an exemplar of Scotland's values and ambitions, which adapts the UK Government's Freeport model, adding Scotland's priorities to it. It requires operators and businesses benefiting from the package of incentives to adopt our Fair Work First approach, which includes payment of the real living wage and the Scottish Business Pledge. It boosts innovation and inclusive growth within communities, upholds the highest environmental protections and contributes to a net zero economy.
Sarah Boyack.
Thank you very much for that answer. I think it's great to encourage companies to use the real living wage and to act on environmental priorities. But what monitoring does the Scottish Government carry out to ensure that public procurement does actually deliver the real living wage to all employees that are covered by public procurement contracts? Surely that is something that is a straightforward issue to require in contracts that are signed by the Scottish Government and public sector organisations. And does the Scottish Government recognise that in Scotland women in particular are more likely to be working below the real living wage, and how will it target them specifically to enable them to overcome the additional barriers faced by women in accessing training opportunities? And how will you act on that? How will the Scottish Government act upon this to change the opportunities available for people as we come out and see a recovery from the pandemic?
Minister.
With regards to issues around about women employment, the member will be aware that my colleague Jamie Hepburn is taking forward a whole range of measures to address those specific challenges within the labour market, to close the gender pay gap and to ensure that women and all groups within the society that are disadvantaged in that regard are able to take full advantage of those opportunities. With regards to the questions around about the real living wage, 92% of all suppliers who are delivering a live Scottish Government contract during the last financial year were made a commitment to pay the real living wage, and although that's encouraging, we continue to strive towards 100% in that regard. And in terms of monitoring, public bodies are asked to report as part of their established annual reporting cycle through their annual procurement reports on the number of contracts they've awarded that included a Fair Work First criteria, and current monitoring arrangements by public bodies ensure that I monitor that a contract, whether a contract is delivered within line with the agreed terms of the contract. In addition, contractors who commit to adopting the Fair Work First criteria in the delivery of the contract are asked to include a statement on their own website highlighting their commitment to advancing Fair Work First criteria for those workers engaged on the contract. So there's a whole range of measures in terms of monitoring that are in place, and as I said, 92% of all suppliers are already conforming to that Fair Work First requirements.
Supplementary question, Willie Coffey.
Thank you. Can I thank the Minister for raising green ports as an example of government support for businesses who pay the real living wage and support Fair Work First? Could the Minister advise whether the Scottish Government is ready to publish the prospectus to invite bids to establish fair green ports in Scotland, and if that process might start before the parliamentary recess?
Minister.
Yes, we are, but sadly we cannot make any progress due to an inordinate, unacceptable delay by the UK Government to finalise their elements of this work. There's now a real risk that the pre-election period will begin in Scotland without the applicant prospectus being launched. That's why I have published today a version of our draft applicant prospectus for green ports in Scotland, setting out the key measures relating to devolved responsibilities, namely on tax and planning, and we intend for the reserved elements to align with those in the Freeport bidding prospectus for England. But let me be clear, our requirements for green ports to include implementation of Fair Work First and a robust plan for transition to net zero are red lines. We will not support any model that does not include these essential elements. We will not engage in a race to the bottom.
Question number 7, Stuart Stevenson.
To ask the Scottish Government what recent engagement it has had with the UK Government regarding managing the economic impact of Brexit.
Cabinet Secretary Fiona Hislop.
The Scottish Government is deeply concerned by emerging evidence that Brexit is having a severe impact on the ability of Scottish businesses to trade effectively and competitively with the European Union, with lasting consequences for our economy. Scottish Government ministers remain in regular contact with UK ministers about the economic impact of Brexit and are pressing for urgent support for businesses that are adversely impacted. Most recently, I chaired a meeting of the Scottish Business Growth Group together with UK Government ministers, which heard from business, employer and employee representatives organisations about the difficulties caused by the new trading arrangements and the need for further assistance. And indeed, just a few hours ago, I had a similar meeting with Michael Gove and business organisations as part of the Business Brexit meeting series. The Scottish Government will continue to work hard to address problems and blockages where it is in our power to do so.
Stuart Stevenson.
Has the Cabinet Secretary noted that the Office for Budget Responsibility suggests there'll be a 4% drop in productivity compared with staying in the EU, and a temporary reduction in the first quarter this year of some 0.5% of GDP? Is it now absolutely vital that the UK Government provides additional funding to the Scottish Government so that we can support the businesses that the Cabinet Secretary has just been referring to and the workers that are employed in them?
Cabinet Secretary.
So recent funding for seafood exporters and SMEs in the UK is welcome, but piecemeal funding can only provide a temporary sticking plaster at best when compared to the sheer scale of costs and losses which are emerging, and we're making that very clear to the UK Government. The additional funding can address the core problem, which lies in the very thin nature of the deal itself. And it's vital that the UK Government listens and responds to what we're telling them. And when you hear the exports from France to UK are down 13%, Italy 38%, Germany 30%, imports from the UK to France down 20%, and Italy a staggering 70%, clearly their own trade statistics are also telling them that there is a problem in addition to those that we're hearing from other countries. So we remain ready to work with them on what solutions are there. There are very productive proposals being put forward, but the refusal to engage really ignores that this is long-lasting, dangerous for our businesses, our communities and our economy. And, Presiding Officer, this is an opportunity for me to say to Stuart Stevenson that he's spoken very sensible and informatively in the Parliament over many years and in many speeches. He served his constituents well. He's been a real driver for change, for climate change in particular, and I wish him well in his retirement and also give him my thanks.
Thank you. Succinctly, please, question number 8, Donald Cameron.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it has a COVID-19 economic recovery plan for the Highlands and Islands region.
Cabinet Secretary.
So we detailed our plans for economic recovery in our response to the Advisory Group on Economic Recovery and developed those in a number of publications since, including our commitment to a model that addresses regional needs and issues and a renewed focus on place-based initiatives. We've committed over £1.2 billion drive Scotland's economic recovery, and as I referred in my answer to Rhoda Grant, significant funding has been and will be invested across the Highlands and Islands to aid recovery and renewal. At the convention of Highlands and Islands on Monday, I launched our first population strategy to address the complex demographic challenges that will obviously impact on our economy, and will continue to work with partners through the convention to address these and wider economic issues.
Donald Cameron.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware that many small hospitality businesses in the Highlands and Islands have been badly hit during the pandemic in particular. Many have received little or no income since the end of 2019. What further support specifically can hospitality businesses in the Highlands and Islands access as Scotland moves out of lockdown?
Cabinet Secretary.
So my colleagues Kate Forbes and Fergus Ewing have been providing business support initiatives, particularly for hospitality. For the smallest sector, those that don't pay council tax, there are funds available to help support them. And obviously across the hospitality sector, the news of the announcement for the Restart grant support, in addition to 2 weeks extra of the strategic business fund support grants, means that in the period when there is reopening from the 26th of April onwards, there should be resources there to help that hospitality sector. But I would appeal to everybody when they can, and they can do so safely, that they do support Highlands and Islands hospitality with their patronage, both those that live locally, but those that will be able to travel there after the 26th of April.
Thank you very much. That concludes portfolio questions, and we will move on in a moment to the next item of business.